Welcome back. In the last video, we went to the Miniconda homepage or downloads page. Remember, this is for Windows, and we downloaded the Windows version Python 3.7 of Miniconda and installed it to our computer. More specifically, this is what we did. Download Miniconda, install it to your computer. Now, for this lecture, we're going to take care of these steps. Test the installation, create a project folder, create a custom environment with it, activate your new environment, install Jupyter, and load a Jupyter notebook. Now again, I realize you might be thinking, Daniel, this is a whole lot of steps. I just want to get into coding. And you're right. I'm the same with these sort of things, but trust me, setting up this workflow is what we're doing. We got your computer, we're going to create a project folder, and then build an environment using Conda, an environment which contains all of our machine learning and data science tools. It's going to be foundational and paramount for future projects going forward. So let's do it. Now we've gone through the download steps of Miniconda and installed it to our computer. We can check to see if it's there by typing in search and looking for something called Anaconda prompt, Miniconda. This will be here once you've installed Miniconda. So we're going to click on that. There we go. And what you're seeing here is this Anaconda prompt. What it's referred to in Mac OS is a terminal, but it's essentially a little part of your computer, a little program where you can type in code and have your computer execute it. So what this means is this little section here is called the env prompt. Now remember, we're setting up an environment. Base is the default environment that gets installed automatically when you download Miniconda and subsequently Conda. And this here is the file path that we're in. So I'm on the C drive in the users folder, Daniel. Yours might be slightly different depending on what your name is. So now we've got this set up. First things first is that we need to create a project folder. So let's do that. To do so, we're going to have a look at what current folders exist in the folder Daniel. And we can do that in Windows by pressing dir, which stands for directory. And that's going to list out a series of folders. Now, if we wanted to see these, you might be seeing this for the first time and thinking, oh my goodness, this is a bit confusing. But let me show you what exactly it's printing out. If we go into the file browser here, we can go to PC. Now we want to copy this, so there's C users Daniel. That's what we want to look for. I'm going to go to the local disk C, users, because remember we have users here, and then we're going to go users Daniel. So if we actually type this out, C/users/Daniel, it's the same as what we can see over here. So now if we compare this list here, we have 3D objects, contacts, desktop, documents, downloads, etc. What we want to do is, for this use case, we're going to create it we'll create it on the desktop so we have easy access to it. And what I mean by this is we're going to create this project folder, which is just another one of these, which is going to contain all of our project information on the desktop so we have easy access to it. So let's change to the desktop. And what I mean by that is, see how this path is users/Daniel? To change to the desktop, I'm going to press CD desktop. And what CD stands for is change directory to the desktop. So now, if I go dir, which is going to list all the folders on the desktop, it's going to show me sample project. So if we go on desktop, we've got sample project. Now we're going to be creating another one of these. So you might not have this already, but this is what we're going to be creating. We'll call it sample project 1 for this lecture. I've already got a demonstration here, but we'll create a new one. So to create a folder, we can type the command mkdir, which stands for make directory. Because we're going to call it sample project 1, that's what we tell it. So we're telling our computer, hey, we're in this drive, we're in the users folder, we're in Daniel, we're on the desktop, and I want to make a directory called sample project 1. We're going to hit enter. Now you can see that has created sample project 1. We'll go back here. So what have we just done? Well, we've done the first step. We've created the project folder. So now we're going to use Conda to build this environment. If we go back to our flowchart, create a project folder and change into it. So that's what we have to do. We've created the project folder, but we're not in it yet, so we need to change into it. Remember to change directory and press CD into sample project 1. So now this is what we have. We're in here. We're on the desktop. We've got sample project 1. And if we go dir to see what files are in here, there's actually nothing in here. So 0 bytes, 0 files. If we look, sample project 1, this folder is empty. So that makes sense. Okay, now what's the next steps? Changed into it, create a custom environment within the project folder. Well, let's do that. So to use Conda to create an environment, remember, if we look at this, we're going to use Conda to create this. So that's this step. You can run the command Conda. It's like saying, hey, Conda, our personal assistant, create. Then we're going to pass it the prefix tag. And now I'm going to write this out, /env pandas numpy matplotlib and scikit-learn. You might be looking at this going, my goodness, Daniel, what is going on here? Well, that's a great question. So remember, what we're saying is Conda, hey, personal assistant Conda, create. We're not, actually, that was a bit mean. We're not yelling that. Pretend this is saying please. Conda, create, prefix. When you see these double hashtags, it's like a little command that can go to the create function. This dot means it's going to use this file path here. So essentially saying, the dot saying within the sample project 1 folder. Env, create a folder called env, and within that env is short for environment, which is this. Within that env, install pandas, numpy, matplotlib, and scikit-learn. Now what are these? Well, if we look here, matplotlib, numpy, pandas, scikit-learn. So let's run this by pressing enter and see what happens. So now our personal assistant Conda, what just happened? A whole bunch of code just appeared. Because we've ran this command here, Conda create, prefix, env, etc. What this is going to do is Conda, our personal assistant for collecting data science tools, remember these are data science tools here, is going to go to the internet and download or query the internet and go, hey, Daniel wants to create an environment on his computer with matplotlib, numpy, pandas, and scikit-learn. And so the following packages will be downloaded. This is a message from Conda. All we did was press enter. What Conda is going to do is, because these packages themselves or these tools require some other tools within them to operate, so lots of code, the reason why is because people have written lots of code in the past, and to prevent rewriting all the code, a lot of existing tools leverage another bunch of existing tools. So Conda is automatically, so this is a beautiful thing about Conda. It's going to download all of the extra tools that we need to get started. And this is what this is listing out here. So we want to proceed. To do so, we'll press Y. Now, Conda is going to download and extract. Extract means install all of the packages it requires to get set up. So now this might take a minute or so, or maybe a little bit longer depending on your internet connection or hard drive speed. So I'll let this run through and we'll resume the lecture once it's finished. Excellent. Conda has now finished. That took about a minute or so on my computer. What it's actually done is it's gone to the internet, it's downloaded and installed these packages, so a big long list of them, into our environment. Now let's have a look over here. So this is what it's done. We've created a project folder. Now we've asked Conda using the Conda create command to create this environment. So if we go back to our sample project 1 folder, there's now a folder in here called env, which is, remember, short for environment. We go in here, we click in here. It's going to have a whole bunch of different files in here. Now, to be honest, I don't even understand what's going on in here. What is important to know is that this contains all of our data science and machine learning tools. So now we have a project folder with an environment with all our tools ready to go. So to access that environment and to access the tools that we want to use, Conda tells us to activate this environment, use the command conda activate C users Daniel desktop sample project 1 M. Now you might want to write this one down if you're doing this for the first time. Yours might be slightly different to mine. Your username might be different, and you might have called this something else, because you can call this whatever you like. You should really call env, always call env. That's a universal name for, or shortened version of environment. But to activate this environment that we've just created, we can use this command. And now I'm a big fan of typing out commands. So we're going to go, instead of just copying and pasting, which we could definitely do, but to practice typing out these things, because we want to, after all, that's what we want to do. We want to start writing our own code. I'm going to type this out, sample project 1 /env, run. Now, what you'll notice has changed. So I literally just type this out and press enter. If we hit enter, you'll notice this base has now changed to this file path here, which means this is the environment prompt. So now we've activated this environment. What that means, we'll have access to all of the tools in this environment. So the ones we just installed. So let's try and test it out. To do so, we'll try and load a Jupyter notebook using the command Jupyter notebook. And if you've never used a Jupyter notebook before, don't worry, there'll be a section on that. But a Jupyter notebook is what you need to know is kind of like a data scientist workpad. You can write code, you can write text, you can work on projects. In fact, all of the projects we work on will be within Jupyter notebooks. It's like the basis of all of our machine learning work. So let's try and start one up. Okay, we're getting an error here. Jupyter is not recognized as an internal or external command. Now the reason being is, if you remember the exact code that we ran before, and it's okay if you don't, we did conda create prefix env pandas numpy matplotlib scikit-learn. So if we go back to our diagram, what do we have? Pandas, matplotlib, numpy, scikit-learn. But no Jupyter. We forgot to include Jupyter in this line. Not to worry, Conda, our personal assistant, is back to the rescue, because there's a handy command called conda install. What this means is, if we type in Jupyter, conda install is going to install a new tool to our current active environment, which is exactly what we want. And since we want to use Jupyter notebooks, we need the Jupyter package. So let's run that by hitting enter. Conda is going to do the same thing as what it did before. We go up here, we've seen all these before, except this time it's only focused on Jupyter in the environment location users Daniel desktop sample project 1 M. So if we follow this through, it's going to install all of these extra packages, because Conda is amazing. It's our personal assistant. And remember, all these packages are our tools that we need for data scientists. And we go Y to run. And again, it's going to go through these download and extracting steps. We'll pause the lecture, wait for this to finish, and we'll come back once it's done. Beautiful. Now that that's finished, we should have access to Jupyter. So let's do a quick recap of what we've done. So we've created a project folder, changed into it, that's sample project 1. Create a custom environment. We've done that with conda create. Activate our new environment. Yep, we've done that with conda activate. Install Jupyter, because we tried to access Jupyter, but it didn't work with conda install Jupyter. Now we have to load up a Jupyter notebook and check the tools we need. Okay, let's try that. So if we've actually installed Jupyter, we should be able to run the command again, Jupyter notebook, the one we tried before that didn't work. So we'll type that in, Jupyter notebook, and hit enter. So now what this is going to do is going to automatically open your browser, your default one, and launch the Jupyter interface. So we can see here maybe a few new things here that if you've never seen it before. What's important to note is that the Jupyter interface has been created from within the folder that we're currently in on terminal. So, uses Daniel desktop sample project 1 Jupyter notebook. It's like telling your computer, hey, start a Jupyter notebook within the sample project 1 folder. So if we look here, we've got the end folder. If we compare back to our sample project 1, we've got the end folder as well. Now to start a Jupyter notebook, remember the workspace where a data scientist or machine learning engineer will do a lot of coding, working on different projects. You can go up to here, new, notebook, Python 3. And again, we're going to have a whole entire section on Jupyter notebooks. So don't worry too much if you're not sure what's happening here. And so what this is going to do, what's happened here? Oh, there we go. It just took a little while to load. So what we did there, we've actually got two because there was something going on there with my computer and it took a while to start up. There we go, untitled IPyNB, which stands for IPython Notebook, which was Jupyter's previous name. And so this is the Jupyter interface. Absolutely beautiful space. We're going to get very familiar with using this throughout the course. And again, we're going to have an entire section on this, but what you need to know for now is that you can run Python code in here. So hello world, and then press shift and enter, and that'll come through. This is a cell in Jupyter notebooks. This is referred to as a cell. You can also change it to markdown, which is like saying text, and say this cell does a simple sum. And the one below is going to do 1 + 1, shift and enter. But what we're focused on doing is testing to see if our environment is set up. So specifically, we've ticked off Jupyter. We've got access to Jupyter because we're in the Jupyter interface. Now we want to see if we have access to pandas, scikit-learn, numpy, and matplotlib. We can do that by importing them. And remember, the import statement is like saying, hey, Python, go and get these packages or tools for us and bring them into our workspace so we can access them. So do import pandas as PD, import numpy as NP, import matplotlib.pyplot, oh, we forgot lib.pyplot as PLT, import sklearn, which is short for scikit-learn. Now, these, you might be like pandas as PD, what, numpy as NP, matplotlib. The reason why we shorten it to these things is so we don't have to always type pandas. Now, if you ever see PD or NP or PLT, you can probably be safe to assume that they're pandas, numpy, matplotlib, or pyplot. To test these, if we actually do have access to them and our environment is set up, we can run this cell, and if there's no errors, we should have an environment ready to start doing data science and machine learning work. Fingers crossed. Beautiful. We can tell that there was no errors because you'll see a number here. Every time you run a Jupyter cell, we'll go over this in a future lecture, the number will go up. So the first one you run will be 1. That's 7 now because we've run 7 different cells. But this is exciting. We've just set up an environment to work on machine learning and data science projects. Let's have a look. We started with this, your computer. Then we downloaded Miniconda, which came with Python and Conda. Then we used Conda to install these tools, specifically within an environment. Now, if we go back here, we've gone through these steps. In a previous lecture, we downloaded and installed Miniconda. We tested our installation via the Anaconda prompt. We created a project folder, sample project 1, and changed into it. We created a custom environment within the project folder. We activated the new environment so we have access to tools. We installed Jupyter. Then we loaded up a Jupyter notebook and checked to see if we had the tools we needed, which we did. Whew! That was a lot to take in. But don't worry, we'll have plenty of practice going through this in future projects and lectures. So, what do we do now? We've got our Jupyter notebook running, but maybe you've finished for the day and you want to close it. What I've just done is saved. So to save a Jupyter notebook, you can either click this save icon, and that'll save it once it loads, or you can press Command S or Control S or something like that. But to close it down, we go back to our Anaconda prompt, and we're going to press Control C. So there we go. We press Control C. Now it says shutting down one kernel. Kernel shut down. The kernel is what runs our Jupyter Notebook in the background. So now you'll see here that the connection has failed to our Jupyter Notebook. So we'll go OK. That means our Jupyter Notebook, we're no longer connected to it. So we're back here. And we're still in our environment. But to deactivate the environment, maybe you wanted to get out and to create a new environment. So we're going to type in conda deactivate. What this will do is take us back to base. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, maybe we want to create a new environment. Maybe you want to work on another project, such as Sample Project 2, and that uses a different environment. There might be a plethora of reasons. However, how do you get back into your environment? Well, luckily, we wrote down that piece of code before. If you didn't, it's okay. It's the conda activate C. We're going to write this out, /env. Now this is if you were coming back to your work and wanted to get back into your project. Daniel / because this is where we created our environment, Sample Project 1. Now this might be in the future, it might be might be Project 2, might be Project 3 or something like that. But we'll usually have env at the end here. So conda activate our environment. Beautiful. Now we're back from base to having our environment active. So then we can type in Jupyter Notebook. Load back up a Jupyter Notebook. It's going to take us to the home page. There we go. We've got our untitled IPyMB, which was saved 2 minutes ago. Click on that. And there's our code from before. So then we could continue work on our project, save it when we need to, and exit when we don't need to work on it. Well, we're going to see this more and more for each single project that we work on. What's important to remember is that this is what we've done. We've set this up for the future. We have our computer, we've created a project folder. Say we wanted to work on heart disease classification. You'd make a folder for that. You'd create an environment, install the tools that you need using Conda. Then, if you're working by yourself, you might not need to do this, but in the future when you're on teams, this is one of the biggest challenges we work through as a machine learning team, was sharing these environments so other people could work on the same projects as us. So that's what we've done. So in upcoming lectures and projects, we're going to do the same steps. Create a project folder, build an environment with the tools we need using Conda. And then every time we're going to go in, activate our environment so we have access to the tools, and then work on our projects in Jupyter Notebooks. Okay, that was a lot to take in, but don't worry, there's attached resources. And if you want, rewatch this video, go through it step by step. Check out the resources section for a step-by-step guide. And if you get stuck, don't worry, I got stuck plenty of times when I was figuring this out. It took me a few goes.